and start. Okay, very good. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here again on a Sunday. This is our last webinar of the season, and it's probably the most important webinar in many ways. We are actually combing through the Common Application. So welcome to season 2024-25. This is your Common Application. You will be looking at this dashboard a lot in the coming months. And one of the things that we're asking you to do is to go ahead and complete your applications early. And the main reason for this is that there are hidden essay prompts, and certain questions will trigger an essay prompt, and we want to make sure we're not missing any of them. We also want to make sure we're on top of your plans, what you're thinking of doing, so that when we have this CAP family meeting 2 with you this month, that we're aware of what your plans are, that we're answering any questions, and we're really ready to send you back to school, ready to have conversations with your counselor, and ready to step into the application procedure, which will begin mostly in October. So just to give you the timeline, we are filling out applications this month. You are meeting with us and discussing your plans, things like early action, early decision, obviously your major. You might have different majors for different colleges, and anything else that you want to discuss with us. And we're doing all of this before you go back to school, because then at school you're going to be bombarded with your high school's process, meetings with your counselor, and most likely they'll ask you to complete forms and kind of get on track with them. So that's kind of an overview. And we are working on the supplement essays. Students are already at least a supplement, if not several, into the process. They will be continuing to write those supplement essays over the next couple months. Students, again, I can't tell you how enthralled we are with your work so far. We're just really enjoying reading your work. You've done such a great job of reflecting on who you are and getting really clear about what you want to share and highlight. So we're just really, really super pleased with the quality of the work this year. And all of that work, some of that work is getting reused. You also have new work to do. So the next 8 weeks to 10 weeks are going to be pretty focused on that essay production. We aim to end all essay production by the end of September so that we can go back and review anything, with the idea that everything should be getting finalized in the month of October, and you should be uploading your applications and hitting submit by the 3rd week of October, so that we have a full week in case something goes wrong, that you can contact the admissions office and get help. So this happens every year. It's not very, not to many students, but every once in a while there's a glitch. Something might be wrong technically, or maybe, you didn't get a confirmation about your application being completed, and we need to contact the college and make sure that they received it. This is very rare, so I don't want to over alarm you, but it is the reason that we start early and that we have a full week, that you're not hitting the submit button the night before the application is due. So with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about the Common App. And again, I'm here with my lovely colleague, Kate Givens. Kate will be taking your questions and answering them, unless they're questions that she wants me to answer out loud. So we'll be taking pauses and stopping and taking questions. I'll be opening up different applications so that I can share with you the specific sections of the application that we're discussing today. So before we jump into that, I also just want to remind you that we send out a weekly CAP email through our Hello at Fahey Associates account. Please read this carefully every week. It keeps you on track with where we are. It will also highlight any urgent updates that come up, and they always come up in the application process. We'll also be reminding you to, submit test scores if you have to. We'll be reminding you about unusual applications if we need to. We'll also be doing this through text with individual students, but that email update every week is really important. So for any reason you haven't seen it or you're not receiving it, please be in touch with us immediately so we can understand what's going on. You'll also be getting emails from your high school, and it'll be important that you stay on top of those as well, because they will be sharing with you their own internal deadlines. So that's really important. I'm going to just give you a quick introduction to the Common Application today. The Common App was created, I think, 30 years ago or more at this point, to make it easy for students to apply to multiple colleges at once. So it's supposed to consolidate the work. And it does that pretty well. Most private colleges are on the Common App, and many out-of-state colleges are on the Common App today. So that is the main application that most colleges in the United States are using. The exception to that is that the UCs have their own application. So University of California, the California State University system also has its own application. Georgetown has its own application, and MIT has its own application. The Canadian colleges have their own applications, and the UK system has one application called the UCAS. And on that application, you're applying to multiple colleges as well. So many of you will be using mostly the Common App. You will most likely also be submitting the UC application and the CSU application. The UC application is now open, so when you have time, you can start filling that out. The CSU application will not become available until the fall. The Canadian colleges, most of their applications go live on September 1st, and same with the UCAS application. So the way that the Common Application works is that you're filling out this general section, which hopefully you've been able to do today. You're also going to be filling out individual questions for each of your colleges. And that's what most of our focus will be on today, is what do those questions look like, and how are the applications different, and what are some things that we'd like you to look out for. Your personal statement is in the general section of the Common Application, and so it goes out to all of your colleges. And some colleges this year are saying that that the Common Application is optional, that they won't necessarily be reading it unless you provide it. You should always provide your Common Application. The reason that they're communicating this is they're really trying to target students that are just kind of overwhelmed by this entire process. And mostly these are students that just don't have the resources at their high school or in their family to be able to really complete the Common Application with confidence. So they're trying to make it less intimidating. But for all of you working with us, with the personal statement, everything is pretty much that is required on the application or that's provided on the application. Even if it says optional, we want you to fill it out. And I'll be talking about that a little bit different a little later. So the first thing we'll do is go through frequently asked questions, because these are the questions we get over and over again. The first one is, what is my GPA scale? For almost everyone in our cohort, your GPA is a 4.0. There are a few of you out there that have a 5.0 scale, and you know who you are. But most of you are on a 4.0 scale, even if you have a weighted GPA that goes over 4.0. So even if you have a 4.1 or a 4.3, you are on a 4.0 GPA scale. So you should indicate that on your application. You should also share your weighted GPA. So that weighted GPA is provided on your application, and you should use the GPA for 9th through 12th grade, or 9th through, well, we'll say 9th through 12th, right? But it might only be through 11th because you're just entering 12th grade. But you do not want to self-calculate ever your weighted GPA. So if you don't have a weighted GPA indicated, you can ask your counselor for your weighted GPA. It's possible that your high school doesn't have a weighted GPA, and then you can't report it. But that's what you want to do. You want to report whatever is on your transcript. And generally speaking, anything that you're reporting from your transcript should be translated exactly how it appears on your transcript, because they will be making the comparison, or they want to make sure that they've got the exact information that's reported there. Adding test scores, I'm going to take this moment to share my screen. There is, and Kate, please just confirm that I've got my Common App open.
You've got it.
Great. So there's this section in the Common App for your exams. It's under tests taken, and sometimes students don't see all the tests. So I'm just going to close these out so that you can see. Sometimes they just see the box and they don't see that they can scroll down and select AP exams or IB exams. So subject exams, you don't need to worry about. Those were retired many years back. But you'll probably be selecting, either AP or IB scores possibly, and then an SAT score. What's very important this year is that if you are not planning to provide your SAT scores, you should not provide them in the test section. And this has been a piece, sort of a technical piece that they've been ironing out over time. And that's what the Common App is saying, is that if you're not sharing your test scores with your colleges, you should not report them there. If you decide that you do want to share them with a college, let's say you're sharing them with your safeties, but you're not sharing them with your matches and your reaches, then you'll want to provide those test scores in that section for your safeties, but not for your matches and your reaches. So that's a little bit complicated. And what you'll probably want to do is submit all of your safeties together and then take all the information out of the test section, or submit your reaches and your matches and then come in and take the tests out, or add the tests in and go ahead and apply to your safety. So if you have any questions about that, let us know. But we are in another test optional year, and some students are not going to be reporting scores to all of their schools. Some students will not be reporting scores. So I'm going to pause there just for a minute and see if there are any questions so far. Kate, is there anything in Q&A that I should attend to?
Not yet, but please feel free, you all, to ask questions in Q&A as we go through this. There are really picky little things. If it's a personal question, I'll let you know that this is something that we'll answer on our own time. So if you're concerned that it might be, but you're not sure, go ahead and ask. We'll direct you the right way.
Okay, so the next question that comes up frequently is, where do I put the college courses that I took? And there are no spaces for that on the Common App. There is a space to list colleges that you attended for a summer program, or maybe you were taking classes there as part of dual enrollment at your high school. But there's no place, unless they're on your transcript, there's no place on the Common App to list those courses out. So you will be listing them in the additional information section, which is inside the writing section. So I'm just going to point to that again and show you where that is. So we're going to go back into the Common App. It's on this tab, Common App Writing. And this is where you will be pasting your personal statement. You won't be doing that now. So you should not be pasting any essays into your application now or answering them. That's what you're working on with your writing advisor and with us. And we'll be letting you know when it's time to paste your essays in here. So you can see right now, I just have a placeholder but here's the additional information section. And this is where you can provide a list of the courses that you took and the grades that you received. You'll want to request a transcript from any community colleges or colleges where you were given credit, and that transcript should be sent to the college. So you will, for many of your colleges, you will need to provide a transcript. Your high school will provide that, but college transcripts, you have to go and get those on your own. And you do that by going to the website, usually the registrar. You can just Google transcript. Maybe you did a course at Brown, or you did a course at University of Washington or Berkeley, and then you just put transcript or ordering transcripts in the name of the college. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, super. So that's the additional information section. We will be working with you on that section. So some of you have sort of a unusual grade, let's say, on your transcript that needs to be addressed. Some of you may have had an injury or you were sick, and so your grades went down one semester. We'll be talking to you about putting that on your additional statement. There may be some of you that have put a lot of energy into a specific activity that is not explained in your essays, and it's not really explained in depth in your activities. So we may have you provide more insight to that activity inside of this additional information section. So basically, the only thing that should go in there is something that we've approved. We don't want you putting long essays. This will really peeve your admissions reader. They don't want to see an additional essay in that section. It's just a place where if there were any disruptions or there's anything that needs to be highlighted in further detail, that's what you'll be including in the additional statement. And we'll be sending around an additional statement handout later this month in our CAP email so that you can kind of get a sense of what that's like. Okay. So,
Hey, Felicia, we have
yeah.
a bunch of questions about college classes.
Okay, great.
All right. So, first question is if you attended a college program that did not have grades, should
Right.
that be indicated?
Right.
And
So
where?
that would not be indicated because it's not considered an actual college course. It's more like a college program. So if you don't have college credit, then it's not part of your record. So basically, anytime you step onto a campus and you take a course that gives you credits and a grade, that means that you now have a college record, okay? And that college record has to be communicated, provided to colleges in the application process. So if you just attended a program, and there's no unit and there's no credit grade, you don't need to report it, and you don't need to add it. You can add it as a summer program, but you don't need to add in the additional statement that you're actually given credit and a grade for that course.
Similar question, is this the same for Language Bird or a program like that that you do earn credit for?
Okay, great. So very excellent question. Language Bird, generally you're getting credit on your high school transcript. It's possible that you're not, but most likely you took Language Bird because you were fulfilling a language requirement at your high school, and it should be showing up on your high school as Spanish 3 or French 4 or whatever it might be. So please check in with your counselor about that if it's not appearing on your transcript. If you got credit for it and a grade, but let's say you were just studying Mandarin because you wanted to, then you would want to include that information, the unit and the grade, and you would include that in the additional section.
And then one more question, what if our college courses are listed on our high school transcript?
Great question. So if they are listed there, then they're part of your transcript if you were given credit for them in a grade. And that means that they're part of your GPA, most likely, but they are part of your high school record. So they go into the courses and grades section. And they should be listed as courses that you've received credit for at your high school.
And one more question, is it fine to send your transcripts yourself, or do the colleges want them to be sent from the college you got credit from?
That's a great question. We're really in a transition period where colleges are trying to simplify the process and they allow you to upload to the portal. So that would be a question that I think we'd want to answer directly with the college that you're applying to. The safest thing is to send the record in, but they might allow you to send it in as an email, your own copy, or to upload it to the portal once you've applied. That's usually what happens. You apply to a college, they respond and say, thank you for applying. here's the link to your portal. Please create an account and a password. And then any information you want to share with us, you can share with us directly. So then it goes straight to the person that's reading your application. And that's also the case with scores. So some schools say just self-report your scores. Some schools say we self-report your scores and then we'll want to see the report if you decide to come to our college. Some colleges say we want you to upload your score report into the portal that they give you. So there's a lot of variation there, and you'll basically be given instructions on how to handle that.
Awesome.
Great. Okay, so that was perfect because we actually had that we were going to take any of your questions, but there may be some more general questions. Does anybody, before we move into the sort of specifics of the each college, does anybody have any other questions about the general Common App tab at this point? Okay, great. So we're going to go into the general questions, and I'm going to just go over a few things that you might see here. You might see a red star next to a question. That means that it's required. And if there is no red star, then you don't have to answer it, but that's certainly not the case for essays. You need to answer every single essay, even if they tell you it's optional. So we always say there's no such thing as optional, right? You need to answer all the questions. There might be a question about, sometimes people ask us about ethnicity, like it's not a required question. Do we need to share identity? I would say that if your last name gives away your ethnicity, then it's just best to be transparent. If your last name does not, and you really are concerned about whether the college is really, race and ethnicity blind, please reach out to us so we can have that conversation with you. That's not an uncommon question. We get it every year, but we do like to have that conversation in person. You might be asked to provide your social security number, particularly in relation to the FAFSA. So if you are planning to apply for any federal loans or scholarships, there aren't a ton of scholarships out there. But if you are planning to apply, or you want to make sure that, let's say the UCs or the CSUs offer you a scholarship if they have one, then you'll be filling out the FAFSA. And in that case, you need to provide your social security number so that they can link your application to the FAFSA. So that question's coming in a lot already. If you want to discuss it in more detail, again, we're happy to do that. Generally I say, if you're okay sharing it, you probably share your social security number a fair amount in applications. I would just go ahead and share it. The Common App is pretty tight on security, so I wouldn't worry too much about identity breach. A few bugs we're seeing are that the major selection dropdown isn't working on some applications. So if it's not working, it's not you. The Common App just launched. They are always rebuilding it. And so they're just ironing that out, and it should get fixed. Major lists can be really long and you can't scroll. So just pay attention to that. You might have to use your arrow down button to go through the major list, and it can be very long, and the major list can be college specific. So like for USC, the majors it'll give you a small 4-letter acronym for the college, like VTRB, I think. And then it says engineering, computer engineering, right? So it'll show you the college. So you're actually selecting a college and a major in that dropdown. There are a few other colleges that are like that. We're also seeing that the activities selection is completely filled. So this might have been cleared up already, but for some reason they've selected all the activities and you can't unselect them on a few applications. So these things will get ironed out. Again, it's just they're not really in beta, but they're in a sort of like, they just launched and they're ironing out all the problems themselves. So they're very fast at fixing these things. The problems don't generally linger. Again, nothing's optional. Schools like Northwestern are saying, You know, it's optional to provide your personal statement. Again, they're trying to target a specific demographic of students that don't have the resources or as much support to go through this process. You should definitely provide your personal statement. Some of the schools like Oregon and Washington are going to provide a place for you to add your personal statement inside of their questions. And we will be reminding you of this in our CAP email. So you're going to be pasting your personal statement there twice. So it'll be in the personal statement section, but it will also be in the writing section under questions for University of Washington and University of Oregon. Some of the state schools, they just don't, it's just about their system and the way that they graph with the Common App. And so that's why they're doing this. So it's nothing to worry about. It's just that you want to make sure that your personal statement is in the question section because they might not be looking at the writing section of the Common App. So again, we'll be reminding you about that. Read carefully. There are some strange statements out there like this one. The following question is only applicable to Texas students who qualify for automatic admissions. So the questions underneath this are actually, you could answer them, but then you're going to potentially land your application in a strange pile that doesn't pertain to you. So please read over every line of the application. I know it's very tempting to skim because you think like, oh, I've already done this. I'm just going to fill it out, or I've seen this already, but please read it over carefully. We'll be reading your application over carefully as well. But you want to make sure that you're reading the statements, and I'll be covering this in just a minute, but you also want to read very carefully any test optional or test specific instructions on the Common App. So each college is a little bit different. They word it differently. So when you get to that section where you're telling them whether you're reporting or not reporting your test scores, slow down, read it carefully, make sure you understand it. If you don't understand it, because sometimes we haven't, please take a snapshot of it and text it to us, and we'll let you know what it says. So that section is just kind of has been bumpy over the last 4 years. And they're still ironing out kind of how to communicate what each college wants to communicate something different about test requirements or test optional. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the Common App again. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to look at how you share colleges. You may already, or how you select colleges. You might have already done this. So you are going to the college search. You're going to put in here the name of the college, and sometimes it'll start to populate. And then it'll show up and you'll add it like this. And then you'll go to my colleges. And this is where your dashboard is for your distinct colleges. And you'll be spending a lot of time in here over the next weeks and in the fall. So then what you'll see is each of these universities have a question section underneath it. And this is the application. So this is their specific application, these questions. I want to take a step back because this college information section, which is, the very first thing you see when you look at your college, it has all of the information in here. So it has the deadlines. One thing that we discovered this year, Carnegie Mellon is not offering early decision 2. So, we've been catching this. We looked over it and we're catching it. I suppose colleges could add early decision 2 in the middle of the season. We haven't seen that before, but wouldn't be impossible. But for the most part, each college has reviewed their requirements and their deadlines, and they've stated it here. And they've also created this really handy dandy list of links for you. So the admissions office, the financial aid, you can do a virtual tour, you can use College Navigator. So this is really useful. If you haven't done a virtual tour of your school, I highly recommend that you do it. They're amazing. This wasn't always available pre-COVID. And now pretty much every college not only has a virtual tour, but they have conversations with students or conversations with professors, or maybe even a tour in a class where you get to sit in on it. So there are so many fantastic resources now on the admissions page of each college. And as you're trying to understand, why is this college, I want to understand more why this college is a fit for me and why I chose it or why I'm so excited about it. You should use those resources because they're visual, you know, they're engaging for the most part. It's really fun to see what the campus looks like. So we really encourage you to take a look at that. You'll see the application fee. You'll see the standardized test policy. They give you a link. So again, if you're considering test optional, you might want to take a look at that. Recommendations, they're letting you know here how many letters of recommendation they'll actually read, right? So one is required for Northeastern, and then they'll read one optional, right? And then they want all of these reports, and these are the reports here. All of these reports are provided by your high school. This teacher evaluation is also provided by your high school. So they're loading their information up from their own portal, which you have no access to, and you're providing your information. And those two things come together to make up the application that goes out to the college. The other application is important. We'll be talking about this again in just a minute. But this is an evaluation that you actually generate the request inside of your own application. So we'll take a look at that. But you know, most schools will say that they'll read one optional. You know, it's optional, it's not required, but they'll read it. And that's what this means, usually when they have one or two there. And then this, just in case you're curious, saves schools forms after matriculation. This college does hang on to all of your information. Some colleges say they don't. They get rid of it. So every college is a little different. I'm going to pause just there for a moment. Kate, are there any questions?
Yeah. One question is, what is a school report?
Oh, great question. That's a really great question. So a school report is basically, it provides the colleges with information about your high school. So what are the demographics? How many students are at your school? What kind of offerings, like do they have AP offerings or not? They usually list them out. Anything else about the school that will help? Is it public? Is it private? Obviously, anything that helps the college to understand what kind of a high school am I considering here? Where is the student coming from? Most college admissions readers have been doing this for a little while, or they've been trained, or they know high schools. Many of them have been reading your applications from high schools for a very long time, so they're familiar with them, or they'll become familiar with them over reading a few applications at a time. But that's what the school report is. It's a report about the school, and then it's followed by the counselor report and recommendation. And the counselor basically provides notes about you and then writes a letter of recommendation. Your teacher also provides notes. The teacher has to fill out a form. The counselor has to fill out a form of evaluation. And with that evaluation goes the letter of recommendation. I highly recommend that you all you should have this in your shared folder, and it is the Common Application Recommendation Form. So you can actually see these forms in that PDF inside of your shared folder. And it's called the Common App Recommendation Forms. It's got the counselor evaluation form in it. It's got the teacher evaluation form in it. And I'm pretty sure it has the school report in it too. So if you actually want to see what those look like, that's where they are.
Can you have a third teacher recommendation in the other category?
So you shouldn't have a third teacher. You might be able to have a third teacher. Schools have become a little more strict about this, and they won't necessarily let you have more than 2 letters of recommendation, but we do see it that students actually have 3 because they might be applying to different programs. So let's say a student's interested in UX design, but they're also interested in data science, and they're applying to some schools that have data science, but they don't have UX design. So they want to use their math, or let's say they want to use their arts teacher and their math teacher for their UX design course. or application. And for their data science program, they want to use statistics and math, right? So then they have a letter from statistics, math, and data science, or statistics, math, and arts. They have 3 letters of recommendation, and they're using 2 for each application. We've never really had a problem with students asking for 3 letters of recommendation. It's possible that the high school might block it, but we've never seen that happen. So we often tell students, hey, we'd really like you to get that additional letter of recommendation just in case for these other schools. Some engineering programs definitely want to see a math letter. So it may be that math isn't necessarily the best subject you have. So you want to have 3 letters. So you have your math, but you also want to have, let's say, physics, right? Because your physics teacher was really liked you, or your computer science teacher, you had a really good relationship and you did really well in that class. So those are the kinds of things that can happen. We generally say, yeah, go ahead and ask for a 3rd letter. We're a little more casual about it, but your high school might be more strict. So, okay. So,
another question.
Oh, sure.
What if you have a recommendation from a teacher in a summer program? Is the teacher responsible for uploading it?
Excellent question. So that would be another question, another letter. So the teacher recommendations can only come from inside of your high school. They cannot come, and they're managed by your high school. So you would, if you're going to request a letter of recommendation from a teacher at a college, or a boss, or a coach, or a mentor of some sort, a family friend that knows you very well, then that goes under other, and you're going to enter the email, the name, and then you hit send. And that will basically generate an invitation to the person to upload a letter of recommendation. And we'll be looking at that specific area in just a moment.
One more. If we have an engineering teacher and a math teacher, we can ask letters of rec from. Is there a preference?
Most engineering programs definitely want to see math. So I would say that engineering will be considered, it's not a math, it's considered an elective, or it's sometimes a career preparation course. So just every high school is going to determine kind of, categorize that differently, that kind of course. So I would say definitely the math recommendation is most important. But again, if you can provide that engineering letter, that's great. If they only will read 2 letters, then you have to make sure that they're not asking for, like, Caltech and I think Harvey Mudd, they both ask for like STEM and humanities. So they want, or social sciences, right? So they don't want to see everything from STEM. They want to see more variety. So then you just want to be careful that you're aware of the recommendation requirements at the school. Great. Okay. So we are going to jump into what's called the recommenders. It's exactly kind of the area that we're talking about. We're jumping into this area called recommenders in FERPA. I'm just going to show you that again. So it's right here. So it's right underneath questions. This is a very important area. And this is where you're going to sign your FERPA. And you can do that today if you'd like. You can do it later. You can wait and do it when your high school opens, but you will most likely be unable to respond to the question. So we don't know this for everybody, but some people, they're not able to fill out their FERPA because there's a lock on their application. This is generally done at private schools. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and complete it. You have to complete it anyway. You have to sign it, and you have to basically give permission for your documents to be provided, and you have to waive rights to read your letters of recommendation. So we never have had a problem. We do this every year, and we tell everyone, go ahead and sign your FERPA before you go back to school. But if you're at all concerned about it, hold off, give us a call, send us an email, text us, and we're happy to discuss it with you. But I'm going to walk you through it right now. This is a required authorization. And it's basically like when you go to the doctor and you have to release that you say that it's okay for your doctor to release documents, or for your doctor to see certain information. So you're basically releasing authorization for the access to your document so that your high school can send these documents, your transcript, on your behalf. And so that's what you're saying. So here it says that the privacy of student education records is very important, and that the FERPA gives you the right to review confidential letters of recommendation. So they're basically laying out the rules here, like you are allowed to review these letters of recommendation. You're going to see in just a moment that they're going to ask you to waive that right? So here it says, you'll be asked if you want to waive the right to review confidential letters of recommendation, and you need to say yes, because if the colleges see that you have not waived your right, then they might not take your application as seriously. I suppose they could even not read it because the letters of recommendation are required. And the reason they're doing this is they want to make sure that the teachers are being transparent and honest. If they know that you're going to see the letter of recommendation, or it opens up the possibility for bribes, this is the whole thing, part of the reason that they've created these rules, then it's very important that the letters of recommendation remain totally private to the teacher, and that the student does not have access to them. Occasionally, we'll have a new teacher that sends the letter of recommendation to the student. Do not read it, because you have to fill out this form saying that you're not reading your letters of recommendation. So that's the FERPA. It's basically like you have the right, but we're going to ask you to waive it. So you're going to click here. I've read and understood the FERPA release authorization. Again, you don't have to do this right now if you don't want to, but if you're comfortable with it, go ahead. You're going to hit continue. And here you're going to also acknowledge that you are providing all requested records, and that the colleges have access to those, basically. So I acknowledge that those documents will be going out for all of the colleges that I'm applying to. So you'll click that box, check that box, and then here you're going to say, I waive my right to review all recommendations and supporting documents. So you're not looking at anything that they provide. And then you're going to say, I understand that my waiver pertains to all of my applications, and then it cannot be changed after my submission. So again, there's really no choice here, but I want to go through it carefully. And then you're going to put your name, and you're going to put the date that you're signing it on. And you're going to select save and close. I will just hover here for a moment in case there are any questions about this important document or authorization. Okay. Great. We will save and close that. Oh, I guess it wants me to update. So we'll put the 4th, save and close.
This is a good question. Do you have to do this for each college?
No, you do it once, and then that opens up the rest of the questions for you. I believe that's the way it's been. So for some of you, it might not. Like, it might be that you have to sign the FERPA in order to access the rest of your applications. Others of you might be able to access the questions without filling out the FERPA right away. But mostly what we see is that you have to sign that document before they allow you to move forward. Okay, as you'll see down here, this is where you'll be inviting recommenders. Now, do not do anything here. I have invited myself. This is, I'm in a practice account, so it's okay to do this. You don't want to invite yourself because it'll mess up your system. So in any event, this is where recommenders are invited. And generally speaking, your counselors are going to upload the information here, or you're going to fill this information in a meeting with your counselor. So you shouldn't do anything here. Wait until you go to high school and find out what they want you to do. But once you do it, and that's why I added myself, it's going to look like this. You're going to have your counselor. It's going to say what the status of these different forms are, that school report that we discussed, the counselor recommendation. And hopefully before you're applying, they're showing that they've been provided, right? And then you're going to apply to your colleges. So we'll be saying around, October 1st, October 15th, please check in with your teachers and your counselor to make sure that they're getting those letters uploaded to your Common App. So it's on their end. It's nothing that you can do on your side. But this is what it'll look like once they've provided them. It won't say not started. It will say completed uploaded. And then when you apply to a college, it'll actually say downloaded. So you'll know that the college has it. This is the same for the teacher section. So you can see it here, same deal, teacher evaluation, not started. And you do not want to invite your teachers here either. So you're going to do that with your high school. You're going to follow their instructions or meet with your counselor and see what they want to do. Now, you can get in here and invite an other recommender. And this is what we were talking about. So the kinds of recommenders accepted by this college are all of them, basically. So they include other, but they include, you know, an arts teacher, for example. Let's say you have an arts teacher outside of your high school, clergy coach, employer, peer. So some of you are applying to Dartmouth. Dartmouth requires a peer letter of recommendation. So you would upload that here. And you're going to do that, and it's very simple. You're going to add the email. You're going to add the relationship. Who was that person? You're going to add their prefix if they have one. And then you're going to add their name. And you'll say add, and then it will basically send an invitation out to that person to upload a letter. And you'll want to keep your eye on that, just like you see this. You'll want to see whether the letter has been provided or not. There's this section called advisor where you are invited to name anybody that you've been working with outside of your high school. Please do not fill this out. Please do not put our name in there. This is really meant for students that don't have access to support. We don't want you to say that you're working with a private counselor because it might, you know, somebody might have bias about it. So please don't fill this out. Don't put anything in here. That's pretty much it for this section. So let's see, any other questions there, Kate, before I move on?
Yes, indeed. So generally the questions that I'm seeing are pertaining to letters of recommendation and our timeline versus the high school's timeline.
Yeah.
So I think just to sort of address it at large, you know, we recommend students request letters in the spring. And then when you come back to school, you're going to get more specific information from your high school about what the process will be for getting those letters of recommendation, and making sure that they are received on time. If your high school is using a program like Naviance or SCORE or Maya Learning, the way that they do letters of recommendation are going to probably look different than what you're seeing on Felicia's Common App. So there's a little bit of a holding pattern here, but we recommend, you know, being on top of things, but you're going to have to follow your high school's guidelines. That's sort of the sort of broad answer to a couple of these questions. If you have letters already added inside of your Common App, that should be okay. But again, talk to your high school counselor just to make sure that it's going to work with their system as well.
Great. Okay. So we are going into the Northeastern application because it's one of the most interesting and the longest. And so it basically covers a whole bunch of questions that you might see. Most of these applications are very short. They're only 1 or 2 pages long. Some of them are only a page. So this one is sort of unusual, but it's important to kind of understand what's going on here. So first of all, what you're going to see is, you know, what kind of degree are you applying for? And we're seeing all kinds of new things. Like I've never seen this, apply for a UK-based degree. So I guess Northeastern now has a campus in the UK. So, you know, you just answer that. If you really don't understand it, you let us know. But, you know, for the most part, you're applying from the United States. You won't see that question, but you will definitely see this question, the term that you are applying and how you are applying. We recommend that if you are applying, that you applied early action to as many schools as you can. You may be applying restrictive early action to Stanford or Harvard, which means that you cannot apply early action to any private schools. You can apply early action to public schools. So they allow you to go to public schools. Not every school with restricted early action allows this. So for example, Georgetown, if you apply early action there, they don't want you to apply early decision anywhere else, which is kind of a strange scenario and singular. But most of the schools will offer early action. They'll also offer, and this is something we want you to take very seriously this year, early decision does make a difference at some schools, not the Ivies, unless you're an athlete or you are, an artist. Really, well, and some, I should say some schools, I would say Dartmouth, maybe there might be an exception here, but most of the large Ivies, going in early decision, you're actually going into a more competitive pool. Same with restrictive early action. You're in there with the athletes, the international artists, with people that have, some contact within the university, that have a lot of legacy. Some kids have like 3-4 generations of legacy at these schools. So that's a very competitive pool. At other schools, like small liberal arts colleges, like let's say Swarthmore or Bowdoin, going in early decision can make a huge difference. So they might be admitting up to 30, 40, 50% of their students in the early decision pool. So we highly recommend considering early decision 1, early decision 2. If NYU, you're really excited about NYU, we highly recommend going early decision. If you're really excited about Northeastern, go early decision. Some of these schools that aren't necessarily super reach, but you're really excited about them, you should very much consider going in early decision to improve your chances. We've been talking to you about this already. Of course, we'll be talking about this in the CAP family meeting as well. But what I want to highlight is this early decision 2, because it's growing. We're seeing it at more and more schools that are offering it. Tufts offers it. Johns Hopkins offers early decision 2. As I said earlier, Carnegie Mellon just took out their early decision 2. But this is another strategy, is to go into one school early decision or restrictive early action and then apply early decision 2 after you hear back from the early decision restrictive early action school in early December.
So Felicia, we have a bunch of questions about early action versus
Right.
early decision. Can we define early action versus early
Absolutely.
decision?
Yes, and we will follow up also with a handout so that you can see that, because it's definitely, it's a little confusing. Early action, all it means is that you're taking early action. It's a non-binding application. You are not making a decision. You're just saying, I'm done. Here's my application. I prepared everything ahead of time and I'm applying early action. Some schools really love this. I want to highlight here that schools like University of Wisconsin and University of Michigan, they have early action, and most students are now applying to those colleges early action, and students are getting deferred. The vast majority of students are getting deferred by their early action applications to Wisconsin and Michigan. Don't let this scare you. It happens every year. It's very common. And the reason for that, I don't quite know. It may just be that the colleges know they're going to defer the vast majority, but they want to know who's coming through. And that's why they're keeping their early action. It may be that there is a crisis in being able to process applications. Wisconsin has grown tremendously in popularity. UMich has always been very popular. It just may be that they never are able to get through all of the applications in time. So you might get a deferral. And again, please don't let it scare you too much, because mostly what we see are positive results in the spring. So we'll be having that conversation later in the year with you, I'm sure individually, once you get that news back. But I just want to emphasize that it's very, very common and nothing to really be too concerned about. So early action, you're just taking early action. Early decision 1, you are making a decision and a commitment, and you will be asked to complete a form saying that you understand. Your parents will likely have to complete a form, And some schools require that your counselor also complete a form stating that you understand that this is a binding decision and that you are obligated to pay tuition. So it's a financial obligation as well as a commitment to the school. So that's very important to understand. And I highly recommend that you look at the tuition costs of any school that you're applying to early decision. You don't want to be surprised. So in most large cities right now, like Boston, New York, tuition total cost of attendance is in the $90K area range, right? So it's really important before you hit early decision, make sure you know what the total cost of attendance. Most tuitions, private tuitions in the United States are in the 50K range. Early decision 2 is you applied to your early decision 1 and it didn't come through, so you're applying early decision 2, right? You don't want to apply early decision 2 before you hear back from your early decision 1. You could, but then you're going to need to withdraw your application and it might be confusing. So I would recommend only apply early decision 2 once you've heard back from your early decision 1. And that's at most schools, it's in December. They're pushing that date back, but most of the time it's by December 15th. And then regular decision is just a regular decision. Most of those deadlines are in January. We have a few in December this year. So like, I think USC is in December.
So Felicia, we have a question about how would other colleges know that you applied early decision for someone else?
They wouldn't, but it would be quite a mess to have 2 commitment statements out there. So once you sign that commitment, you are financially obligated and you're going to have to find a way to get off the hook with the school if they admit you. So if they don't admit you, if you have 2 early decision applications out there and one of them doesn't admit you, then it's probably, but actually if they ask the counselor, and this might be why they're asking the counselor to do this, the counselor will likely catch it. Right. So you wouldn't be able to have 2 early decision 1 applications unless you did them separately on separate applications. But I'm pretty sure that I don't actually get to see the counselors back end. And because counselors are working with different like Naviance and Maya and all these different vendors, I'm just not sure what it says, but I would assume you're marking it on the application. So you probably can't do 2, but I've never had that question before. And I suppose you could experiment, but I think it's risky because if they find out that you've done that, then they might both drop you. I mean, they're very strict about having multiple commitments running at once.
And I think on the Common App, if you indicate early decision 1 and you finish your agreement for early decision 1, because you do have to check off and your parents have to check off, that once that's done, it takes that option away from your other schools.
That would make sense. Yeah.
All right. Here's a good question. If you apply early action to a school and get deferred, can you upgrade that to an early decision 2?
Not at that school. That's a great question. Yeah. Okay, so is that good, Kate? Can I move on?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Specific fee waiver program. This is usually they offer this for, students that sometimes if you've had some kind of exchange with the school, they'll give you a fee waiver. That's pretty rare, or they might send you, actually, if you're getting stuff in the mail, sometimes on the mail, it'll say, enter this code to waive your fee. So you might look at that. We saw a few of those last year. But most of the time you're saying, no, I do not qualify for a specific fee waiver. And then here's the statement about test optional, right? And as I'm saying, every college states this in its own way, in its own terms, with its own language. So please read it carefully. We had one year a student that didn't read it carefully because they thought it said the same thing that another college had said. And they ended up stating that they wanted to provide exam scores when they didn't. And then the college was holding them accountable for their exam scores. And it was a big mess to get that turned around. So, you don't want to have to call admissions and say, I made a mistake on my application. Can you help me out? So read it over carefully. We're in another test optional year. So that's that. There is a section generally where they're asked if you are applying for need-based aid. And I just want to make sure it's not here, that we didn't just skim over it. No, I'm not seeing it here. So sorry for scrolling. Let's see, academics. This is where it starts to get really interesting. So in case I miss it, there's usually a place on the application that says, are you applying for need-based aid for each question? You want to say no unless you actually qualify. And the last I saw, you have to be making, I think it's under $60,000 or $80,000 to be able to qualify for federal aid, right? So you are most likely not applying for need-based aid. Please be in touch with us if you think you are. If you say that you're applying for need-based aid, that can land you in a separate pile. Not all colleges read test blind for aid. So I highly recommend that you do not select it. But if you have any questions about that, let us know. The major section has become very interesting. Colleges are now offering all kinds of different programs for your freshman year, some of them in their sophomore year. They have multiple campuses, and they're allowing you to start your year abroad or start your year in another part of the country, and then come in your second semester to the campus. So for example, Northeastern, and NYU has something very similar, is saying, where do you want to start your freshman year? Do you want to start it on our Boston campus? Do you want to start at Oakland? Northeastern basically bought Mills College, and so they now have a campus here with pretty limited majors, but they have some interesting programs. Do you want to spend your first semester abroad in Madrid, Milan, Paris, Berlin, London, Dublin? I mean, our students are having a ball on this program. So I highly recommend, if you're applying to Northeastern, that you check it out. Basically, you spend your first semester in one of their satellite programs, just like you would do study abroad. You take courses that are going to count toward your degree, and you come back in the second semester. Why are they doing this? Students at Northeastern are going into co-op, they're going into study abroad. Sometimes they don't make it through their freshman semester. Maybe they get ill, maybe there's a family emergency. So students are moving around. And so by moving students around, they can move them back into absent spaces. So absent dorms, obviously paying tuition. So it's a very smart business move that requires quite a bit of organization, obviously, and Northeastern is quite good at it. Northeastern also has the London Scholars Program, the New York City Scholars Program. These are both new. So you could start in New York City and then come to Boston. If you really want Northeastern and you're truly open to all of these options, you can select, let's see, can you select multiples? No, you only can select one, or you can select all of them. If you select all of them, it's possible that they will put you on Oakland. So I just want you to be aware of that. Most of our students are saying, it's going to boost my chances of admission, no problem. I'm happy to do a first semester abroad. It's like a little mini, gap. You're going to go make friends from the same program that are going to be at Northeastern with you. You get to be in a foreign context, use your language skills. It's really a great experience. So highly recommend that. Let's see, to be considered, here are some other programs. It says, please note that you will be considered for all programs, regardless of your answer. And then if you choose to apply early decision and receive an admission offer, the second preference will not be binding, right? So again, here they're asking you, if you're applying ED, are you interested in starting at these different places? That might, it could help your early decision. What we're seeing is that the students that select these options have a higher rate of being admitted. So if Northeastern is exciting to you, or if just going abroad is exciting to you, we highly recommend it. Here you're going to, at this school, you're selecting your college, then you're selecting your major. They might ask you if you're interested in a pre-professional program. For any students that are going pre-med, you might be interested. It's usually law, medicine. Sometimes they have business in here, but that's combined bachelor's and master's program. So you can kind of check that out if you're interested in it. This is a good way to find out what else the college offers. And then this is about, is English your native language? There's a bunch of kind of different questions in here that are pretty straightforward, and I won't keep going through all of those, but I will take a break and see if anybody has any questions about those programs or how to answer them. Okay, great. So the college might ask you if you want to receive texts. That might mean that you receive promotional texts. You can put a stop to these texts, but it might also say that your portal has been updated. So I would recommend signing up for them. Most students, it's really hard to check email. You're getting a lot of email from a lot of different places. We generally see that it's hard to keep up, especially as you get into this season, because you're going to be getting more emails than usual. So I think a text is a great way to make sure that you're not missing anything. So I highly recommend that. You may be invited to apply to an honors program. If you think that you want to do that, there's usually another application. For UW, they have an honors program, and we generally recommend that students look it over carefully. There's kind of a concern that it adds more of a course load to one's studies. And so you can certainly apply for the honors program once you land on campus, but we just recommend that you take a look at it if you're interested. If you're applying to Arizona, we highly recommend that you apply to Barrett's honors program. It's one of the best honors programs in the country. Many colleges have honors programs, and you'll see the opportunity to select whether you'd like to apply for them and the instructions. If you want to apply and they generate an application with essay questions, then that is something that we charge for. So it would be considered an additional application. And if you want us to help you out, just let us know, and we'll invoice you, and then we'll add it to your documents. All right, we've gone through all of those satellite campuses. Another thing we're seeing, this one was really interesting. Tulane has a spring start, right? So what that means is, we know we're going to have more space in the spring. Would you be willing to start in the spring? And so you can also select, I'd be willing to start second semester of my freshman year. Obviously, you're not in there for all the orientation and all of that, but if you really like the school, you might as well consider that. It's also an option that might be offered to you as part of the admissions office. So even if you didn't sign up for it, it's possible that we saw schools come back to students and say, we can't admit you for the fall, but we can admit you for the spring if you're interested, or we can't admit you the first year, but we can admit you the second year. So you might see something like that. It's pretty interesting. For the majors section, we just looked at it. It's pretty straightforward. Most of you kind of know the major or majors you're going to be applying to at each college. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. If you're going undeclared, we've been having this conversation with you. It's no problem. You can go undeclared. If any of you are thinking, wow, I thought I was interested in psychology, but I'm not so sure I am anymore, I think I'm going to go undeclared. No problem. Undeclared is a perfect request and response on your application. So you just need to look for it. Some schools have social sciences undeclared, science is undeclared, so you can look for that as well. USC has that option. Scholarship and other opportunities, you'll see that also. There might be some scholarships. You'll want to read over them carefully. Some of them are really targeted towards certain demographics. Others are more open, but that's something to kind of take a look at. Again, you are going to see wording about essays being optional. So we've already had students say, oh, well, I'm not going to do the essay, or I don't have to do that essay, so can I swap in another college? And we've said, no, you actually do have to do that essay for Vanderbilt, even though they say that it's optional, or UVA, or Northwestern is saying this. So a lot of pretty, prestigious schools are saying this is an optional essay. It's really not optional for any of you. If there's anything you want to discuss about that, please let us know. They're just trying to make this process more equitable and more available to students, because students have felt historically very intimidated by the process. Okay, so again, the exception on,
Felicia,
oh yeah.
we've had a couple of questions about whether or not it hurts your chances of acceptance to apply undeclared.
That's a great question. That, to my understanding, especially large, I mean, if you're planning, if there's any chance you want to apply into engineering, you should apply into engineering. So that I'll say that right away. Computer science, if you want computer science and you're applying to state schools and you will not attend unless you're admitted, then you should apply computer science. But it is a 3% admit rate at most schools right now. 3, 4, 5, 6% admit rate. It's dire. So we've had that conversation with you already if you're applying computer science. Everything else is pretty much fair game except for on the UCs. So the UCs are different. We prefer that you pick a major if there's any chance that you want that major, just so that you have a spot. But undeclared, if you're really undeclared, no problem. They have no problem with that. Most colleges have no problem with it unless it's a major or a college that is highly competitive, and you won't be able to get in unless you apply as a freshman. So I think, are there any follow-ups on that?
I'm going to give it a second. But no.
Okay, great. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have pulled all of the supplement prompts that we can find. We have pasted them into your supplement document, students, right? Kate, we're all good on that front. Everybody's got their supplements. There may be 1 or 2 missing. Not all of them are there. So like Yale, Princeton, Tufts. Tufts put their questions on their website, but they did not add them to the Common App. So we're not moving a whole lot there until we hear for sure what their final decision is. University of Washington have not posted their prompts on the Common App, but they've posted them on their website. So we have moved forward on those with students. They have not changed. We're not expecting them to change. They're just behind in getting thing uploaded to the Common App. That's what we think. And Yale and Princeton are always behind schedule. So they should be there soon though. They usually won't be past August 15th. They'll post their questions. So it's important that students, you look at your prompts and look at your application and make sure that they're all there. So you are filling those applications out. So it might be that you answer a question that generates a new essay prompt. We have tried our very best to look at every possible scenario and grab the questions. But there's a very slight chance that you put in an activity that you do and it generates a question. You need to make sure that we put that question on your supplement doc so we can help you with it. Very, very short questions that are only 1 to 25 words. You do those on your own. It might say like, what's your favorite snack? This isn't something you need help with. You should definitely like, just, what your favorite snacks are, have fun. They're asking you to just kind of get loose and say something just very authentic about you. If there are questions that are important, that are short like this, we've put them on your supplement doc. So you don't need to worry about that. There is a section I want to point out where the writing is separate from the Common App section. So we're going to take a look at that right here in Wellesley. There are about maybe 5-10 colleges that do this. They have to pay the Common App separate. So most colleges don't do it. But you can see they have an application section with the questions. And this is where on most applications, like let's go back to Vanderbilt, all the essay questions are under the questions. But on Wellesley, the essay questions are under this writing supplement. They've paid extra for this extra section of the application for whatever reason. And this is where you find it. When you go to apply, you're going to first send out the application, this part. And then you need to come back and send out the writing supplement. We will remind you about this, but I'm going over it now. So first you send the application, then you have to come back and provide the writing supplement. You don't want to forget to do that. It should show on your dashboard here whether you've done that, right? So under Wellesley, let's see if it has more details. You'll get a little dashboard in here of the status of your application. Like you can see how it has application status. And they will alert you if you have not provided that second section. So it's very important that you do them both. You send them both. So it'll have a, maybe right here, it's going to have a little green check for each of these. The other thing that you might be doing is providing an arts supplement. So I'm pulling up Wesleyan so you can see what that looks like. If you say there's a question on under the questions, it says, are you providing an art supplement? Or it might just say, are you providing a portfolio? Some colleges are saying you can provide a portfolio of things you've made, things that are more technological, art, poetry, whatever. So they will either use Slide Room. So Wesleyan is using Slide Room. And let's see if it takes us there. Other colleges, yeah, they are using Slide Room. So I'll show you what that looks like. That's another vendor. So you'll come in here. It's for the College of Wesleyan. It's specific, but they have partnered up with Slide Room to get this. So you'll be creating another application with them and providing your uploads. Other colleges might just have a way for you to upload directly into the application. They have gotten rid of Google Drive, but they might have a way for you to do an upload. So that's the art supplement. Let's see. Again, you are not pasting your essays in yet because your essays aren't final. Nobody has final essays yet, right? So we are marking your essays. We will mark them final when we're ready. If we're doing that right now, it's just because you can, you know, we're letting you know this essay is ready to submit, but you may be wanting to have your counselor read it. You may want your parents to read it. You may have a friend who you really trust who's a great editor. That friend might be reading it. So we're not at a point yet where we're like lined up to put essays into the Common App. That won't happen until September, mid-September, late September, and will definitely be happening in October. So just hold on and for on putting anything into those boxes. We'll be letting you know. We may also be putting ASAP, as soon as possible, right next to an application. There are a number of applications that we would like you to send out as early as possible. So once your personal statement is done and the application has been reviewed by me or Kate, that would be Arizona, Arizona State, Purdue. We'd like to get that application out sooner because they recommend getting it out sooner. We would also like you to get your application out to Wake Forest sooner than later, because once you submit your application, they're going to ask you to do a video. They're going to, after 5 days, or they're going to send you a response and they're going to say, we want to see a video response to these questions within the next 5 days. And you can book an interview in the next 5 days. So because they have this kind of very strict protocol, we want you to get that application done early so that we can make sure that you have every chance to have an interview and that you're ready for that video essay, I guess is what they're calling it. Okay, so don't submit your application unless we tell you, please. Don't submit your application on your own. Your parents need to review your applications. Sometimes students have made mistakes. Sometimes a mistake can land you in the questions pile, which means that the reader has to give a call to your family or to the high school counselor. You don't want to be in that pile because time goes by very quickly. Let's see. I think those are all the things that are on the application. I am now going to show you how to submit the PDFs to us. So it's a little bit, it's not hard, right? It's a little bit tedious, but it's not hard. So the first thing you're going to do is generate PDFs of your Common App tab. Again, you're not putting your writing in here, so you don't need to worry about that. You're going to select for each of these different categories, sections of the Common App. You're going to select preview, and you're going to scroll down and you're going to select print. And then you're going to save it as a PDF. And what I think is easiest is just to save it to a folder on your desktop. And then you can drag all the PDFs into your Common Applications PDFs, which is inside of your college documents folder. And this is all explained on the form. So just like for your CAP Family Meeting 1, you're going to be completing a form. So you have instructions about what we want to see in this next meeting, how we want you to provide that information, and that we want you to put these PDFs into that college application PDFs folder inside of your college documents folder, inside of your shared folder. If you have any trouble, let us know. It's no problem. Just text us. So you're going to create a PDF of this. You're going to go back and you're going to create a PDF of the family section. Of course, make sure that everything's filled out because we're going to be reviewing it. So the first thing you want to do is review everything as a family. We always want 2 sets of eyes on the applications to make sure. I mean, anytime you apply for a visa or anything like that, you want 2 sets of eyes on it, right? So make sure there aren't any mistakes. Education, same thing. You're going to hit this preview button and you're going to save for each of these. For the questions, it's a little simpler. You only have to do it once. So you're going to come into the questions section. You're going to select preview and it will generate the whole thing. Well, I don't have anything in there. Let's go grab Northeastern so that it looks a little bit more realistic. We'll go into Northeastern. We're going to select preview and it will look like this. You'll have a whole rundown. And this is what Kate and I are going to be reviewing. We're going to go through it and make sure that everything looks right. We find mistakes every single time. We may have questions that we want to bring up in the CAP family meeting. So this is what we're going to be going over. And then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to hit print. You're going to save it as a PDF into the folder. So that is that. The last thing that I'll talk about here, and I'm going to stop sharing and just show you the link. The UC application is open as of August 1st. So I will share my screen again, and you can see that it is open and people are riding their bikes and collecting, doing all kinds of fun things, but sitting in class. Oh, here we go. Now we're in a lab. Okay, great. So in any event, this is another application, pretty straightforward. The only big difference here is that you get to write more for your activities. We'll be getting to this later. You don't need to worry about it right now. If you want to start it, we encourage you to get a head start. Once school goes back to session, it's busy. You all remember what it's like to be out in a big field and then to have to step back into a box. It's not fun. And it's usually quite busy. So it's usually a period of stress. We will be keeping you moving forward on your essays. It's really important to continue going to your writing advisor, continue your homework. We don't want you falling behind. This work can really build into a tsunami fairly quickly. With many of you, it's looking like we're going to be able to get you done this month potentially, and that's great. So a few of you are going back to school and you're going to be president and you're going to be doing some crazy sports and you've got a really tough academic schedule. So we're really pushing to move you forward. If any of you would like to move faster, be in touch with us. Kate and I are super good at helping to do what we call fast tracking on the team. And we can help you move forward at a quicker rate and be in touch with your writing advisor as well about doubling up and moving more quickly over the next week. Some of you are going back to school next week, others the week after that, and others the week after that. So we are doing our best to get as much work done as soon as possible. And the more that you can step in with us, you will be grateful. The fall is busy, it's stressful, students are applying to college, so you will go back to school. You won't necessarily immediately feel it in August. You'll start to feel something building in September. In October is when there's a lot of sort of both energy and excitement, but also pretty high stress. Some students are just starting their personal statements. Some students still don't know what colleges they're going to apply to, so everybody's in a different place but either way, you're in the midst of it. Everybody's getting ready to apply. So it is, that's kind of October is the high stress month. And then for us, this month is very busy. Just so you know, if we're unable to get back to you immediately, please know Kate and I have meetings with each of our families. It's a busy month for us. We're also reading essays, making sure that we understand what's going on with the Common App and all these bugs are getting fixed. We get questions at this time of the year. So if we don't get back to you, we will as soon as we can. It usually won't be more than 48 hours, but just know that for us, this is like our tax season right now. This month is particularly busy. September is also busy. We're pretty busy through October. But in any event, we're here. Please do not hold off on asking us questions. We want you to send us our questions. We're really looking forward to seeing you in the CAP family meeting too. And we, just so you know, parents, we are texting your students all the time. We have a text relationship with them. That's how they generally like to communicate. Some students like to email, and we do that as well. But we are checking in on a pretty consistent weekly basis at this point, setting meetings if we need to, making sure that they don't have any questions and that they understand sort of what's going on with their supplement docs right now. So I believe, Kate, check me, but I think that we have covered everything.
I believe we have.
And do we have any questions?
Giving everybody a second to answer or ask questions if they have them. Any questions, friends?
I will say one thing. You might hear about the coalition. The coalition was created as a competitive product to the Common App. And they just haven't stuck. It didn't quite work out. They had a really bad year where they had technical difficulties and people got spooked and they moved over to the Common App. So if you hear about the coalition, let us know. You can only apply to 20 schools on the Common App. Again, it doesn't include the Canadian schools or the UCs or CSU. If you want to apply to more than 20 schools on the Common App, you might consider looking at schools like Indiana. These state schools in the Midwest have their own application as well. So you can also look at applying on their website, especially if they don't have essays. That might be a good option. Some private schools have their own application still, and you could move there. Not the usual suspects. Like I think Clemson might have their own application. But that was last year. I don't know if that's the case this year, but if that's an issue for you, that's one way to get around it, is either to use the school's own application. I don't know about the coalition. We stopped using it and looking at it. So you would have to kind of, proceed at your own risk. And then we're happy to answer questions, but really we don't know what colleges are using that. And we would prefer that you stay on the Common App. Certainly
All
for
right,
any
we've got some
doing with
questions.
us. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. When does the CSU app open?
Great question. CSU opens in October and you can complete it immediately and submit it immediately. The last day to submit it is November 31st. The UC application is already open. The last day to submit it is November 31st. We will be getting everybody done by November 15th. Again, I want to just re-emphasize that students disappear November 15th. They can't handle it anymore. There's too much going on. They've got projects due. So we have made it our goal as a company to have everything done, most everything done by the end of September, ready to submit in October. The UCs will be going out before November 15th. So just so that you know, that's our timeline. We're very strict about it. It's there for you. Students are exhausted after finals. We really recommend that you book a vacation and that students are not working during those 2 weeks. They are getting exhausted in the second semester of their senior year in physical ways now. So senioritis is for real, but burnout is also really prevalent these days. So students need a break, those 2 weeks of break in December, and we're definitely taking it. We're exhausted by that time as well. So if you have plans to do anything during that time, please communicate with us so we can plan. But our goal and the way that we've set you up and the way that we're tracking is to have everything done pretty much by mid-October with just a few pieces to submit in November. UCs, CSUs, maybe. You might have an ED2 application that you send out, but it's going to be all ready to go.
All right. Should we use our school email for all college related things?
That's a very good question. Yes, you will probably use your school mail, but if you have a Gmail, generally you're going to have to then create a new email when you go off to college. But if you're at a private school, I would use your private school email. I think that's what your counselor is going to want you to do. If you're at a public school, I wouldn't use the number. I think you want to create a Gmail, but you might want to check with your counselor. Most of our students use a Gmail that's in their name, and not something like Little Kitten, but something like, Alex Brady or whatever. So that's what we recommend, is to have a Gmail. As you know, we're pretty strict with that in our own company because we have a whole automation system that requires it. But most colleges will recommend, so check with your private counselor about that. I see students using their high school email, but they might recommend that you get a Gmail as well. So
should we prioritize finishing our supplements, our personal statement, or another part of our application right now?
that is a good question to bring up with your CC, not knowing who you are or what you're writing about or what you've done. If you've already got a good solid draft of your personal statement, I would let it go for now, because it's good to let it sit. But I would address that question directly with your CC, because it's better that we're really specific with you rather than being general. I don't even know if I have a
And
general answer to that question.
yeah, it's good. I liked what you said. Are you going to look over our UC applications?
We are. So it'll be, I think, October, we're going to say, please create a PDF of your UC application and send it to us. So we will move into that UC application process around the time that you're submitting, but around the time you're submitting, everything's going to be done. So it's a pretty quiet time. And then, we have deadlines around the end of October, early November to get your, final application with your essays in it, so we can give everything a final look.
Do you work with students after their EA or ED decisions for letters of continued interest, etc.?
Absolutely. We are here till the end of the year, till you graduate, and you will be asked for letters. You will be asked for essays. We are here to help you with those. So expect to get an essay prompt in January, or two in January, February, asking why you're really interested in the school. So Case Western pretty much deferred a lot of people and then asked them to write a long 500 why Case Western essay last year. So that's just that can happen, and we are here to help absolutely on decisions. And we'll be, huddling with you in the spring about which school to go to. We've got a spreadsheet so you can kind of weigh the pros and cons for each of your schools, and helping you to arrive on a final decision. The second part of this process is very emotional. Everybody just be prepared. Right now it's stressful. You're having to get work done. It's a bit of, just feels kind of intense. On the other side, it's emotional. Your friends are hearing back, you're hearing back, you're sort of collectively going through this process of receiving this information. The best way to go through this is to not be attached to any school or any outcome. It's really, really the best way. And I know it's easy to say that and not so easy to assume that kind of posture, but the students that get through this with less stress just never attach to one school. So I know everybody has high hopes, and we had tremendous results last year. Everybody was getting into at least one of their reaches. So we're expecting that to happen again this year. But to the extent that you cannot be, if you tell yourself, I'm going to die if I don't get into this school, like I have to get into this school, you're giving your body a very serious message. And we have actually seen some students have very significant stress responses this year. Last year, 2 of our students had very serious health issues, and both of the doctors said it was due to stress. So please don't do that to your body and to yourself. It's just college. There are so many colleges out there to enjoy, and all of our students have a ball. They love where they go. If they don't, they transfer, they end up somewhere else. It's very rare, very, very rare. So please know you're going to land somewhere great and you're going to really enjoy the experience. Even our students that go off thinking like, oh, I should have gone to a better school, end up saying, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I ended up at this school. It's a perfect fit for me. I'm just having such a great time. So just know it all works out. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a long emotional process in the winter, but everything ultimately works out. Just don't get attached to one thing occurring, because that's the thing that can just cause a lot of undue stress for you and your family and your body. So thanks everybody for being here. It's always a pleasure. We're just really enjoying our relationships with you, working with your students. It's been one of the best years on the book. We're expecting that to play out in the applications. And of course, we're here. If you have any questions, please let us know. You know how to reach us. So have a great rest of your day, and we will see you soon.